Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
And once again, as we mentioned on our Bonsuke prediction, Fleric will not be joining us as he is in hibernation for the next couple of weeks before he can talk about sumo again. But we are here again to talk about the Haru 2020 Basho. And since we have extra time on our hands, we're going to talk about the other guys that we didn't get to in the first episode.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time. As you can obviously tell, we're recording from home again due to the coronavirus outbreak. Fun fact there, going for a run for the first time in the spring very closely mimics all of the symptoms that are published about COVID-19.
How so?
Not incredibly wrong there, because I
Yeah.
also went for a run and was very coughy afterwards. And had to assure my wife it's just because I'm out of shape, not because I am sick.
Yeah, I was hoping that going for a run would be one of the boredom cures, but that sucked. That was awful. I'm never moving off of my couch again.
Stay there. Eat plenty. Eat more. Hydrate more.
Yeah.
And with the miracle of coronavirus, you never have to move off your couch again. In fact, it's recommended that you don't.
Oh, tell us more about it.
Well, I'm doing pretty good on that front. Just had to learn a lesson the hard way, apparently.
So what we are going to do, not going to just do a typical recap. We're going to have a little bit more fun with this. So we're going to do a little bit of a draft to decide which 26 rikishi we are going to talk about. So Mac, Jake, and I will each select... let's see, 3 divided by 26, carry the
We'll have
1.
9, except for one of us has 8.
I was getting there.
Yeah, whatever.
So we'll each select 8 or 9 guys to discuss. But the guys we are absolutely not allowed to mention after this list are Hakuho, Kakuryu, Takakeisho, Asanoyama, Shodai, Hokuto Fuji, Endo, Takayasu, Takushoryu, Mitakayumi, Enho, Takanosho, Tochinoshin, Koto Shogiku, Aoyama, and Koto Nowaka. Those guys have already had their time in the sun.
But I know most about them.
They've already been discussed on the premier English language sumo podcast of Greater Iowa, so they've had their fame, and now it's time for the other guys.
Exactly. And so we really haven't determined a draft order and how we're going to do things. So why don't we just have somebody call dibs for first draft pick?
Dibs.
All right, Jake picks first.
I'm so glad I made it.
Mac, do you want the second pick or the third pick where you can get 2 picks in a row with the third pick?
I'll go third.
All right. So, Jake, you have the first pick in our draft of 26 remaining rikishi. Who will you take number 1 overall?
Number 1 overall, I'd like to talk for a moment about Kiribayama.
All right. With my first overall pick, I will take Onosho. And that is the only guy I know I wanted to talk about, so it'll be very interesting to see where the rest of this goes.
It'll be a big old mess from here.
It'll also really point out who we don't care or know a whole lot about.
Yeah, there you go.
For my pick, I'm going to go with Abi, since I do actually enjoy his type of sumo. And then for my second overall pick, I'm going to go with Ryuden.
Brings it over to me, and I think I will go with... I'll go with Daisho, Magashira 1.
Sounds good. For my picks, I'm going to go with Kaisei, and I'm going to go with Ishura.
How about... you know what? Let's go Kagayaku.
All right, 2 picks for Mac.
All right, I'm going to go with the man with the glorious ass, Tamawashi.
Takara Fuji is the glorious ass man.
Oh, no, I want Takara Fuji. I want that ass. Oh, wait, you just got that on recording. Uh-oh.
Yep, saving that soundbite for later.
Okay, well, fine. Tamawashi and then Takara Fuji. Ha!
There you go. Kind of a upset overall, I think. I'll take Takayama in the 4th round.
Sounds good. For Jake, we're going to go with Chiyomaru. Yep. And we're going to go with Sho Hozan.
Ow. Ow. As you guys cannot see on the recording, my cat literally just tried to climb up my back.
I'm sure your cat was very kind and didn't use his claws at all.
Exact opposite of that, in fact. But I do believe it is my turn. Jake, who did you pick? I was rather distracted.
Chiyomaru and Sho Hozan are off the table.
Okay, that was the groan I heard from Mac. I will go with Tsuyoshi.
I will go then with Meisei. And then I will do Azumaryu.
Oh, I thought he was going to be one of the last guys gone.
I'm just picking randomly.
That's fair. I will go with Shimanoumi.
Okie dokie. For Jake's pick, let's take Tsurugi Show and Tochiyozan.
Brings it back to me. Kind of feel bad for the guy. He's easily the highest ranked one available, so I will go with Okinoumi.
I will take Miyogiryu. And then I shall do Dayamami, because he's fun to say.
Just going to pack in a whole bunch of Dayamami.
Dayamami.
All right, back to me. Another fairly large upset, I think. I will grab Ikioi. Sorry, Jake.
Damn. He was one of the two I was looking at. But I'm going to take Chiyotaryu here. And then Sadamoumi and Nishikigi fall into the very bottom here. The very last ones to be picked. I'll go with Nishikigi. Sorry, Sadamoumi.
Damn it.
Sadamoumi, it was kind of inevitable, actually.
Yeah. If you were to ask me who would be the last guy picked, probably would have said Azumaryu first, but Sadamoumi would not have been far behind that.
I'm kind of surprised how high up Takara Fuji got.
Max and Assman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, fair enough. And Yusho winner Tamawashi was kind of in the middle.
Well, no, because I picked the wrong guy. I was like, wait, I wanted him, but oh well, I'll just take him too.
Should we take a few minutes to collect our notes and then go through the order?
That sounds good to me. We are back. We have all completed our extensive biographies on each of our guys. So how we're going to do this is we are going to set a timer for 90 seconds for each one of those guys. It doesn't seem fair to them that we spend probably 10, 15 minutes talking about Hakuho when each of these guys gets 90 seconds. But they should have been more impressive during the Basho, and we don't want this episode to be 5 hours long.
And at least a handful of these guys, it's kind of a push to say that they have 90 seconds worth of material from this Basho.
Yes.
But we wanted to hit every single one of them.
Yeah. So, Jake, why don't you get us started with the first guy you want to talk about?
I drafted him first because I really did want to talk about him. I got Kiribayama here. He's a new guy to top division sumo, and I think he is going to be a very interesting one. He's actually a Mongolian. His real last name starts with LKH. So, yeah. That's
not how letters work.
Those letters aren't supposed to go together. But either way, he came over from Mongolia and got started in sumo about 5 years ago. Spent almost that entire time in Makushita, and then the last year he just slowly worked his way up the Juryo ladder, and then he's got a combined 20-10 record in his 2 tournaments in Makuuchi. So he definitely turned a corner about a year ago when he just all of a sudden did way better and started working his way up through these top 2 divisions. This tournament, he got a 9-6 record from the Makuuchi 8 rank. So he's going to hit his career high somewhere in the Magashira 3 to 5 range. But one thing that I really noticed about him is he reminds me of Harumafuji. We didn't get to see a whole lot of Harumafuji's career, but we did catch the little tail end. And Kiribayama's sumo reminds me a lot of lateral movement, a lot of advanced technique on the belt. Once he gets there, he's pretty much he's pretty much gotcha. And I'm really liking him as a guy that's going to be fun to watch. In addition to the interesting history that he brings with him.
All right, Mac. Or sorry, no, it's me, my first guy. So Daisho is my first guy, and pretty much what he did this Basho is just continued his streak of being a very even rikishi. Since July of 2018, he has no double-digit winning or losing records, so he's only gotten either 6 or 9 or 9-6 records with 7 straight Basho, 7 in a row,
Wow.
with either an 8-7 or 7-8 record. So this has allowed him to hover in the joy for the past year.
That's somebody who has hit the perfect equilibrium of where their skill is at.
Yeah, exactly. And fairly under the radar guy as well, as he's been in the joy for the past year, but he is in our other guys section, and we really don't talk about him. What are your guys' thoughts on Daisho right now?
His style of sumo and like his physical mannerisms and things like that, he doesn't really stick out, I think, is part of the problem.
He's still dead to me.
That's fair. Yeah, he's a tough out. He seems to perform really well against the upper rank guys. He's a pusher thruster guy, but he's smaller too, but he's a really tough out. I think you're probably right. He's hit his equilibrium. He's hit his peak. Maybe not his peak. He probably can get Sekiwake, but he's not going to really go too much further than this. All right, Mac.
I have Abi. So he is currently 25 years young. Started off in Maizumo and then worked his way up. So he didn't come from college. He started at the lowest rank, worked his way up through Jonokuchi, Jonidan, Sandanme. Did pretty well, got some Yushos here and there in Jonidan and in Sandanme. Up in Makushita, kind of stalled out just a little bit, and then he starts bouncing up into Juryo. He's kind of a checkered record, but at this point, he is starting to develop his brand of sumo, which is just Oshi over, and over, just pushing like a madman. And it's gotten him a couple of different Yushos in Makushita and in Juryo, even got him up a special prize. In the last tournament, he was M4 West, which was definitely a downgrade from where he was at Komusubi 1 East, which he held that for, impressively, 4 consecutive Basho with his Oshi-style sumo. He's proving it can work, but I feel like he's an upper ranker in terms of where the Bansuke is. We know that his pushing style is effective, and then whether or not he has good ring sense or just gets lucky, he's definitely an interesting guy to watch, but his Oshi sumo definitely on another level because he goes right for the face.
And then he dances to the side if that doesn't
Then he
work.
dances.
Yep.
And I think he's at the point where people have figured him out and know he's not going to change, hence his losing records in the past couple of Bashos.
Exactly.
Jake.
Next up, we got a guy that everybody has an opinion on, so this was kind of an easy one, but I got Kaisei. Kaisei went 8-7 this tournament from the Maegashira 14 rank. He's a guy that everybody knows. He's one of those easy ones where it's like he's so visually different from everyone around him that he's one of the first guys people are able to recognize when they pick up sumo. One of the first guys that everybody's got an idea about.
It's the gorgeous body hair. It's
the body hair. It's the body hair. But yeah, so this tournament he did okay. He lost his first and last 3 matches, which was kind of weird, and then he went 8-1 right in the middle. I don't know, kind of a strange one. But what I noticed about Kaisei is that he's got to be like the nicest guy, because at least 4 times here in my notes I have that he saved somebody from falling off of the dohyo. He's got to be just as nice as he looks there, and he always looks super happy and like he's having a good time. He's probably going to hover in the right around the Maegashira 10 rank. That's kind of about where he's been forever. He's kind of been in the single digits of Makuuchi Maegashira ranks for a long time, and now it looks like at 33 he might be dropping down a little bit due to wear and tear.
All right, we got in under the timer on that one.
Nice.
So my next guy is Okie no Umi, and this is another guy that I have that I think he's pretty much at his peak and performed as well as you could hope for him. He has a few Junyusho and special prizes in his career, but they happened when he was ranked further down the Bansuke. He's 34 years old and he only has 6 tournaments where he's been in the Sanyaku ranks. So this is about as well as you could hope for him to perform, really. Looking at his schedule, he lost to both the Yokozuna. He did beat Takakeisho, but lost to Asanoyama. He actually did pretty well against the Komusubi and Sekiwake, but the upper competition he couldn't do anything with, but then he dropped matches to like Kiribayama and Kagayaki and Daisho. So kind of upper zone of death kind of guy. Did exactly what you would expect for him to do. He's 34 years old, so he's really not going anywhere. And that's about all the Okie no Umi chat that I can muster, unless you guys have anything else to say.
He is Jason of Jason's All Sumo channel, Jason's favorite guy.
He is, yes, absolutely that. Very curious as to how he came to
I have no idea
that
why
conclusion.
Why he sticks out that much.
All of our favorite guys, it makes sense because they're good, but Okie no Umi? All right, we managed to get 90 seconds on Okie no Umi. Mac.
Hey, there you go.
All right, so I have another Maizumo guy, Ryuden, who we've kind of seen bounce around just a little bit in the mid-rank, which I think is a good spot for him. But the big thing you would notice with Ryuden is he's kind of a well-rounded guy. And if you look back at his career, again, like I was saying, he started off in Maizumo, came up through Jonokuchi, Jonidan, Sandanme, was doing actually pretty well, just slowly working his way up. And then he got into Makushita, doing well, had his first little bout with Juryo, and then he started dropping like a rock. Unfortunately, like gone, just disappeared from the Bansuke, had to work his way back up. He's only been back in Makuuchi since about 2018. And from there, if you look at his brand of sumo, you look at how he performs in the ring, he's just kind of a well-rounded guy. You don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, just something that I've always noticed about Ryuden, and it seems to hold true. If he gets your belt, you're done. Just keep him off your belt, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, he's well-rounded, but he's very, very good at the tight end grappling.
Yes, definitely. He's got a couple prizes to his name, but otherwise, he's just been kind of a mid to low ranker, and he's been kind of holding it there. This last tournament, he was M5, 6-9, but before that, he was M8, 10-5. He seems to do his best when he's in that mid to low end portion of the pack.
All right, Jake.
Next up, we got Tochiozan. We covered him a little bit, actually. He's come up in a few weird, random conversations. He was a longtime rival of Goeido. Go ahead, Mac.
That's all I was going to say. Like, wasn't he involved with
The whole Goeido rise.
Yeah. He and Goeido got into it at the same time. And actually, this was he also came up when, let's see, who was it? Kyoku Tenho. We were talking about Mongolians recently. Kyoku Tenho got a Yusho back in 2012, and Tochiozan faced him in a playoff. So that was definitely the height of Tochiozan's career. He was a Maegashira 4 at the time. He's been Sekiwake a handful of times. He was included in that group. When we were talking about Goeido, we brought up how the commentators would refer to them as like the 7 samurai. They were, Kisano Sato, Kodo Shogaku. Tochiozan was like considered part of that generation. And throughout his career, he's been in the Joy, but usually as a Maegashira, like 1 through 5-ish or so. He's got 6 Kinboshi. That's kind of way above what you would expect for a career Kinboshi total. But this tournament, he did terrible. He didn't get his first win until day 11, which was just a pulling win over similarly maligned Tamawashi. He finished at 3-12 overall because he did beat Azumaryu and Miyagiryu, who were having terrible tournaments. But Tochiozan, it wasn't super obvious why. I'm thinking that it's probably he's just getting kind of older. He's also 33.
Jake, the timer has spoken.
And I'm going to finish my thought. He's kind of older at 33, and he's probably just slowing down overall, and that's probably what's taking its toll here. Lots of wear and tear.
All right. My guy is Yutakeyama, and he's fallen a bit behind from what I've now discovered, and am going to refer to his rival Asanoyama because they both debuted in March 2016 as Sandanme Tsukedashi, meaning they both started off in Sandanme, not the very bottom of the divisions. And they both made their Makuuchi debut within a basho of each other. But that doesn't mean he's not doing well. He has put together 4 straight winning tournaments. He was actually down in Juryo in the middle part of last year, but it seems like he was injured. And so now he's getting back up, doing kind of the sumo we expected from him after his 12-3 record that he had in Nagoya a couple of years ago when Mitake Yumi won his first Yusho. He's one of the guys that we've kind of been looking at as maybe like a potential Sanyaku regular. I think one of us threw him out, Mac, I believe it was you, as a potential future Ozeki, we're thinking. His style is definitely a lot different than Asanoyama. He's primarily pusher thruster kind of guy. But I do think he is finally starting to reach his potential that he's shown in the past few basho and this basho. He didn't get a Keen Boshi, but he was able to beat Asanoyama and Takakeisho. Dropped a couple of matches to guys like Tochi Noshin, but he's starting to put it together, and I think he will be a force to be reckoned with for the next few years. Mac.
I have now another Mizumo guy. I didn't realize this when I was picking them, but Tamawashi also started in this area. Now, we know him more for his Kotenages of Death, and we hate him for his Kotenages of Death, having injured quite a few wrestlers with his throwing style. But looking back at his record, he has been in Makuuchi for a long time. He's bounced up and down since about 2008 between Makuuchi and Juryo. He's 35 years old, so he is definitely an older guy. But it doesn't really stand out with his career until about 2015 when he got his first Kinboshi. And then another year goes by, he starts getting a couple prizes, but his big breakthrough was in 2019 when he got the Yusho and 2 special prizes. That was at Sandanme 1, and ever since then, he's been really spotty. And if you look back in his records, it's spurty. He'll go up, and then he'll go down. It's really hard to place where this guy belongs. Seems to be another one of those mid to upper ranker kind of guys. If you look back, he's got a lot of 9 and 6s, quite a few 10 and 5s being up in the joy. But in this case, like, it's really hard to place where this guy's going to be. And for his style of sumo, we've said it before, those Kotenages of Death, don't really appreciate those, but for a 35-year-old guy, not bad.
Next, we got Sho Hozan, who is also in that upper tier of being ancient. At 36, that's like about time to be put out to pasture. 36 is ancient, isn't it? We can comfortably say from all of us being 30-ish.
Yes.
Sho Hozan has always been a super exciting guy, in my opinion. He's got wild. He is not afraid to go in there slapping, and that always leads to exciting matches. But this tournament, it did not translate into results. He went 4-11, and 2 of those wins were in the last 3 days. So he was staring down a 2-10 record at one point that was just ghastly. His wins were not really good ones either. The people that he beat, the best person that he beat was Takara Fuji, who finished 9 and 6. His other wins were Tochi Ozan, Tokushoryu, and Hokuto Fuji, who all did awful, just as bad as Sho Hozan did. But I always like watching him because he is a fun to watch guy. He's always been bouncing all over the place in the Makuuchi division. He's been as high as Komusubi in the past, but he never made it work at Sekiwake. At 36, he's probably pushing the end of it. 5 years ago, he got a June Yusho at 12-3, but like that's basically been it. He's mainly a guy to watch for the excitement rather than the results.
All right, let's move on to Onosho, who is hopefully finally starting to look like the guy we thought he was after he had his 3 consecutive 10-5 records when he made his Makuuchi debut. He's had his first back-to-back winning records in over a year. And finally, ever since his injury, he stopped slipping all over the GD dojo. I took a look at his losses for this basho, And the first two, one was Hiki Otoshi and one was Tsuki Otoshi, so one where he's sent to the ground. But then after that, it's Yorikiri, Tsukidashe, Katasukashi. So he's not being pulled down or just slipping to the ground as often as he was. And he was able to get a win over Hakuho, got that Shuken Show Outstanding Performance Prize. He's going to be back up in the zone of death this upcoming tournament. So he'll be going up against the top competition. What do you guys think Onosha's chances are in the next Basho?
I think that he's going to do great. He was a guy that a year or two ago we thought he was going to be a mainstay, like on the level of Takakeisho, and I hope that he can make that stick now.
I think he's going to be way too overzealous, and he's going to trip and fall like he does almost every time.
I mean, at this point, this Basho was the anomaly, so hopefully he doesn't go back to that, but you could be right, Mac. All right, Mac.
Another one of our favorites, again, started in Maizumo, would be Takara Fuji. This guy has been around for 33 years, and he is definitely a meat and potatoes fundamental and an ass made of rock. We joke about it a lot, but seriously, that man has the best lower sculpted frame, I think, of anybody in the upper ranks.
Yeah, waist up, he looks like a sumo wrestler. Waist down, he looks like a lean, weight-cutting bodybuilder.
Like granite. And it shows with his style. So if you look back in his records, he is a solid mid-ranker. Anytime he gets up to about M1, M2, or even Sekiwake, as he was in 2016, kind of falters a little bit. But if he's back in M4, M8, M7, anywhere in those areas, he usually, more often than not, will get a Kachikoshi. And even then, if he does get a Makikoshi, it's only a 7 and 8. So this guy is a really strong fundamental, definitely a belt guy. You don't see too many Oshi Sumo in there, but this is definitely one of those where it's like, if you want a fun, fundamental guy to watch, Takara Fuji's your guy.
Yeah, and he's been, this is about where he belongs. He's kind of a guy that gets like 9 and 6s, 6 and 9s, and he just kind of is bouncing from like the upper part of the Bansuke to like the mid upper part of the Bansuke. So he's found his happy place, and he's an older guy, so he's not going anywhere. All right, Jake.
Next up, I'm going to talk about Nishikigi, who is older than I thought. He's actually 29. He's been around for a while here, but he started all the way back in 2006. So like at the bare minimum age that you can get into this, and he struggled to get through Makushita for a handful of years, but then in 2015 he kind of established himself as a Juryo or double-digit Magashira guy, and that's basically where he's been the whole time. In the last like 5 years or so, whenever he does drop down to Juryo, he tends to do very well. So let's see, he's dropped down to Juryo twice since 2016 here, and has gone 10-5 and 11-4. So he clearly belongs in the top division. It's just right at the bottom. And I make that joke about the Nishikigi slot is the very last ranked guy. He's been there a handful of times. This tournament in particular, he was at Magashira 14 and he went 6-9. He didn't start off very good. He started off as 1-7, but he managed to stop the bleeding in the second week and did pretty okay, finishing at that 6-9. The highlight of his tournament, at least in my opinion, on day 15, he absolutely lifted the crap out of Sadamoumi and just carried him all the way across the ring and out. That was awesome. I'd love it if he could show that more often and get back to the top of the Makuuchi division where he was briefly last year, but probably not.
All right, my next guy is Kagayaku, and he is actually on the best streak of his career. He's had now 3 straight winning records with his 8-7 that he got this Basho. Previously, he never even had back-to-back winning records since his Makuuchi debut in July of 2016. He's never dropped down to Juryo, but he's never had back-to-back winning tournaments until he has this 3 in a row that he's currently on. He will be pretty much at his career high rank of around Magashira 4 in the next tournament. But looking at who he faced off against in this Basho, he pretty much beat the people that he was ranked higher than and lost to the people he was ranked lower than, with the exception that he did beat Okie no Umi, who was Magashira 2. So he lost to Endo, he lost to Hokuto Fuji, where Hokuto Fuji had an ass Basho. and he lost to Mitaki Yumi. So all the guys that were above him, and also he lost to Yutakiyama. So all the guys that we think are better than him, he lost to, and we're probably correct in thinking are better than Kagayaki. He could be on a streak like Nishikigi, where like, oh wow, how is this guy up so high? How is he doing so well in so many consecutive tournaments? Or maybe he's like turned a corner and he might turn things around. I think we'll find out more in the next tournament.
Next up for me is Meisei. He is 24 years old, so he's a newer guy, definitely. Started in Mizumo, went up from Jonokuchi and Jonidan, and then rocketed up through Sandanme within a year, went from Sandanme 67 to Sandanme 10 by December. So really did well there, then kind of stalled out a little bit, and then just, again, doing good sumo, working his way up bit by bit. Until he made his Juryo debut in November 2016, and then his Makuuchi debut in 2018. And since then, he has either posted a career high rank or just a little bit below until 2 tournaments ago when he got injured. So it's kind of hard to place where he belongs. If you look back into his other records when he's in that lower Makuuchi, he got 9 and 6s, 8 and 7s, and then he gets over promoted from Magashira 7 West to M4 East and got a 4 and 11, and then got smacked back down. So then he comes back at M10 and does 10 and 5. So I think at this point he's still too new to really say where he belongs. We know that bottom of the Bansuke, he can put up decent numbers, get a Kachikoshi, but his injury back in Hatsu really set him back, dropped him from M5 to M17, so I think he's going to work his way back up.
All right, Jake.
Next up, we got Tsurugi Show, who he was injured pretty severely, it looked like, in the last tournament. He was kind of posting up on one leg, and then that knee gave out. And it looked brutal, but he did finish the last tournament. He ended up going 6 and 9, so it wasn't a complete disaster last time. It was a complete disaster this time. At Maegashira 15, Tsurugi Show went 1, 4, and 10, so he went 1 and 3 in the ring, and then he dropped out. And he's 28, so I'm thinking that this is something he can probably come back from, but it's one of those things where he needs time off. He can't just wrestle through this one. And that's often the case when we've seen knee injuries like this in the past. Some time off, maybe he can recover his form. But yeah, this time around, it seemed like there wasn't an obvious moment that it happened, I don't believe, but it was very clear that he wasn't 100%, and then he must have just twinged it enough again that he couldn't continue wrestling. So it sucks to see him get hurt. It always sucks to see guys that have to take time off like that, but I hope that he takes it serious and is willing to drop down the Bansuke a little ways to make sure that he's healthy.
Oh, I was going to say, he's just a guy that, based on his face, my wife loves him. So she's going to be devastated to see him drop down. But he's a guy that made his Makuuchi debut when he was a little bit older. Like, I think he was 28 years old.
Yeah, he's 28 now, actually. I guess it was still within the last 6 months. But remarkably, before that, he spent 3.5 straight years in Juryo, never going good enough or bad enough to leave the Juryo division, which was kind of uncommon.
All right, and a massive upset. We went about 20 seconds over on Tsurugi Show.
Weird.
So I'll rein it back in and start talking about Teru Tsuyoshi, our favorite salt thrower around.
Make it snow.
He was at Maegashira 11 this basho. I was very interested before the basho started to see if he would still do his salt throw, and it turns out yes, he does. I thought it was more of a thing for the crowd and that it wouldn't really mean as much if there was no crowd behind him, but he still went through with it, and it worked out for him. He's had 3 straight winning records in a row, 8-7, 8-7, 9 and 6, so nothing impressive. But he does have 4 out of 5 winning records with that 12-3 June Yusho he had back in July of last year. He's going to end up at probably his career high rank in the next tournament, but last time that he was ranked M10 or above, he went 4 and 11, and I don't think he'll do that poorly next time because I don't think there's a huge difference between M11 and M7, but I don't think Tsuyoshi is a guy that is going to be like Enho, where he's a smaller guy, just dazzling everybody, constantly winning when he shouldn't and stuff like this. I think he's probably going to end up being somebody I'm going to talk about later, like Sadamoumi, where this is his home, and that's okay for him.
That's okay. I have another Mizumo guy. I actually did Mizumo for 2 years. Azumaryu. He is 32 years old, and I started thinking back, like, how? I know this name, but why do I know this name? It's because he's been in Juryo since about 2015. So every time we've looked at the Banskei's, and those few times we would stay up to watch the Juryo matches because they were the only ones that were on at a decent time for us, Azumaryu was usually there. And he really stays in the upper to mid rankers for the Juryo guys. He will every once in a while kind of bounce up to M15, M16, but he usually gets smacked right back down. So his happy place is definitely in Juryo, which isn't bad because at least he's still in Juryo. Hey, he's still better than hundreds of guys below him. But that's about all you can say about this guy. He hasn't really done all that much. He's got one Juryo Yusho. So for the 5+ years he's been in Juryo, he's only had one Yusho, but he's obviously good enough to stick around.
I have literally nothing to add for Azumaryu.
It's kind of a cool name.
Oh, I like his name.
Yeah, it's a cool Shikona. Next up, we got the meme himself, Chiyomaru.
Boy!
Yeah, who is also older than I thought he was. He's 28. He's been wrestling since 2007. He took a little while. He took 6 years or so to make it to Juryo, but then he blasted right through Juryo, winning a Yusho. And has been hovering between the double-digit Maegashira ranks and the upper Juryo ranks ever since. It looks like this time he barely managed to avoid going back to Juryo. The big story of his basho is he had to take 3 days off because he had an elevated temperature. And they were not going to take any chances that, the first sign of anybody showing any sort of coronavirus symptoms, they wanted to make sure that they get them tested, they make sure that everybody's healthy before they allow him to be in contact with the rest of the wrestling community. So his test came back negative, and he was allowed to finish out the tournament, which is good because those last 5 days he managed to get 2 wins, which is just enough to stop the bleeding on his Make Koshi. Technically, he ended up 7-6-2, so he is going to get a demotion. But he was 7-5 in the ring, and I think that's something to be proud of. Go ahead, Mac.
And his style of sumo normally is just using his gargantuan belly to his advantage and just pushing everybody away from him and then going for an Ataki Komi and trying to slap them down.
Yeah, he's always good to watch, but he's like I said, he's the human meme.
All right, my next guy is going to be Ikioi, the mummy himself, always wrapped up in the tape. And he actually continued his streak this tournament of 4 straight winning records. He was on the verge of retirement, we all assumed, about 8 months ago when he was down at the bottom of Juryo and one more losing record would have sent him to Makushita, and everybody was thinking that he was going to retire. But since then, he won a Juryo Yusho. He's made it back up to Makuuchi. He's had 8-7 records since then. He's 34 years old at this point, and he's probably done making any real noise, or 33 years old, sorry. He's probably done making any real noise in the Makuuchi division. I think this is probably about as high as we can expect him to go. Maybe a little bit higher, but I just think he's probably gotten enough injuries on him at this point that he's not really going to be able to do too much. He hasn't been up to the higher Maegashira rank since 2018. Ikioi, he looked okay. I mean, 8-7 is an 8-7. It's a winning record, but when you're down at Maegashira 12 and you only face 2 guys that are above double-digit Maegashira ranks and you lose to one of them, which was Enho, I mean, it's just not that remarkable of a basho.
Real quick point on Ikioi. Whenever he does retire, he's got quite a bit more celebrity than most wrestlers have to their names, and also a gorgeous singing voice.
Well, a guy whose voice is unknown, but definitely not his name. Definitely fun to say would be Diamami. I mean, just saying his name is just kind of fun. Came in
I am mummy.
Diamami. This is the first college guy that came with my group of picks here, and he crushed it coming through Makushita. Always posted a career high rank, and then he got to Juryo, and there he has stayed since about 2017. So he's still relatively new. He's only 27 years old, but he's kind of found his niche in the mid rank of Juryo and the lower division of Makuuchi. Usually all the times he's been in Makuuchi, it's been M15, M16 or lower, and he's only gotten maybe 2 Kachikoshi since he's been at the Makuuchi level, and 2 of those, he got an 8 and 7, and then when he was M16, he got a 10 and 5, up to M11, smack down with a 4 and 11. So he's definitely a Juryo guy, but he's still young enough. He might develop a little bit further. It'll be fun to see if he can actually go further, and then we can just say Diamami over and over and over again.
He was a hell of a chump for me this time with that 5 and 10 record, so I got to give him that. I appreciate that, but once again, he's a guy like Azumaryu. He's barely in the Makuuchi division. I have no opinion on Diamami other than he's probably just a Juryo guy.
My last 2 guys are actually kind of tied together for this basho, but I'm going to go with Chiyotaryu first. Chiyotaryu is he's 31. He went to college but did not get he got a Makushita Tsukedashi. So he's only in his entire career spent 4 tournaments outside of the salaried ranks. All the way back in 2012, he made it up to Juryo, just kicked Juryo right in its ass, and has been in upper Makuuchi ever since. His highest has been Komasubi, but a couple times he has dipped down into Juryo due to some what appear to be injuries back several years back based on his record and absences and such. But he's hovered most of the time that we've been recording. He's been like a top 5 Maegashira kind of dude. Recently, he's had a tough go of it, and he's been at Maegashira 11 for a little while. This tournament, he pulled out an 8 and 7, and I think he probably would have done better if it weren't for that day 4 match with the next guy I'm going to talk about, Ishiura. Chiyotaryu, he kind of like tripped at the edge of the dohyo and fell all the way flat on his back, and we talked about this on our recap. That looked awful, and he hurt his ankle, and he actually had to get wheelchaired out. At that point, he was 3 and 1. And yet somehow he managed to not only complete the tournament, but get his Kachikoshi. He looked a little slower than usual and tried to do big man sumo, like with Oshi style, and then do the quick pull down moves and stuff like that. But it didn't really work out for him. He just barely squeaked by.
I kind of surprised he didn't pull out after that ankle injury and he's wheelchaired out. But
for sure, that was shocking that he managed to stay in after that.
All right, am I on my last guy at this point?
I don't think you should be.
No, I'm not. I need to talk about Shima no Umi. Forgot about him.
So did everyone else.
Shima no Umi, he was on a losing streak over the past 3 basho, but he managed to right the ship right before he was sent back down to Juryo with a 9 and 6 record from Maegashira 16. I apologize. My cats are being dicks right now. One is playing with the crumpled up Post-it note that he is okay with playing with now after losing the battle for my lap with my other cat. It's okay that I'm using this time to talk about my cats because, I mean, it's Shima no Umi. He hasn't really done much in the Makuuchi division since he made his debut a year ago. He got that special prize in his debut basho, but since then he's had 2 winning records and not a whole lot else. He's Nishikigi. He's just a different form of Nishikigi at this point, probably. He's not ever really going to be all that impressive or at the top of the Bansuke. I think he's already 30 years old. Jake, go ahead.
He's got some bitchin' sideburns, though.
Shima no Umi?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I haven't paid enough attention to that. I will check that out. All right, Mac.
My final guy is Myogiru, and he was another college guy that started off in Makushita and crushed it, got up to Juryo and was crushed, and unfortunately fell back down to Sandanne due to an injury, and has since then fought his way back up really has been bouncing between Juryo and Makuuchi since about 2011. He's got tons of prizes to his name. He's got several Juryo U shows, lots of Kinboshi, particularly in the past couple years. He even managed a back-to-back Kinboshi back in Hatsu with a 5-10 record. So this guy is, again, another one of those that's really hard to place where he belongs. He's really spurty, but if you look back at all of his records, he can perform really at any of these levels except in the Joy. I mean, if you look back to when he was Komosubi and Sandame back in 2015, or Sandame, excuse me, if you look back when he was in the Joy, he did okay, but he seems to prosper the most when he's M4, M5, maybe M1 every now and then. But again, he's one of those guys that's just really spurty on what he can do. His sumo isn't bad, but again, he's just one of those that's hard to place.
All right, Jake, your last guy.
My last guy is with Takayasu potentially dead. Ishiura is probably near the top of my list of favorite guys. So I saved him for last. Ishiura is very short and looks like a bodybuilder. You know him. You've seen him. He's pretty awesome. He actually started his career. He went to university but did not get any boost in the rankings because of it. He started at the very bottom but was able to pretty much rocket his way through there. So he had the talent to potentially get one of those college ranking boosts. But either way, he started in 2013. By 2015, he was in Juryo, spent a little time hovering in there. And then in 2016, he made his Makuuchi debut. He's been down to Juryo just a couple times since then, but has always made those stays brief. He's a guy that is very locked in at Maegashira, maybe 10 to 15. Like, that is exactly where he belongs. And he has no double-digit wins or losses anytime recently, except for like 2 in the last 3 years here, it looks like. So yeah, he hovers right in that spot. That's where he belongs. His sumo is super fun to watch. He manages to get on the belt a lot, and once he gets on the belt, he's kind of like an Enho or somebody. Like he's very sticky, and he'll get there, and he's just too small for people to really leverage away from him. So that results in lots of good belt technique and lots of exciting matches. Most important match being that Shiotaru one that we already talked about. But yeah, Ishiura, he'll be moving up a few ranks, and that'll be fun to see. All
right, I hope you all saved at least a 5-minute chunk, maybe 10 to 15 minutes for our final guy, Sadamoumi. What is there to say about Sadamoumi?
Good question.
No, he's just continuing to do his unremarkable thing. He's good at his thing, and his thing is being unremarkable. He had a 6-9 record from the middle of the Bansuke at Maegashira 10. This is his 3rd straight losing tournament. He hasn't been higher than Maegashira 8 since November of 2015, where he had 4 basho in 2015, where he was in the zone of death, but he had never been there before, and he hasn't been there since, and he probably won't ever again because he is 32 years old, and he is Sadamoumi. Jake and Mac, take it away for your breakdown of who I am now dubbing the most unremarkable man in sumo.
Yeah, if it wasn't for his butt, I'd put Takara Fuji in here in the same completely forgettable bucket. I will say that
Takara Fuji can get into the zone of death every once in a while, though.
Yeah, that's true. I will say that Tamawashi versus Sadamoumi on day 10 was a pretty awesome match. It was just a frantic, all-out war. And then he got lifted on day 15 by Nishikigi, and then he fades back into the annals of history. I said what I said.
Okay. I will, however, might have to make a slight correction on Sadamoumi. He's not the most unremarkable because he at least has some career accolades. He has 1 Kanto show and 1 Kinboshi. Jake, who doesn't have any accolades to his name?
Kagayaku sure doesn't have any accolades.
Oh, knew that was going to come up.
It's the one. But with that, we have now talked about all 42 rikishi that performed in the Makuuchi division for the Haru Basho, touching at least a little bit on each of their performances. some of these guys, you could see why we don't ever really talk about them.
All 42, I will call that the full hitchhiker.
We hope your lives have been enriched. We know ours certainly have. Whether it's positive or negative, like, hey, you know a little more.
It's mostly we're just trying to fill time until we can go outside again.
Darn you, COVID!
But while you are also stuck inside, you can leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast listening service or Apple Podcasts. I said that backwards than I usually do.
Yeah, you're fired. You can tell Ryan how poor that transition was right there on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that junk, or our blog, GrandSumoBreakdown.com.
And if you really just want to say, guys, don't do that ever again, drop us a line at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com or give us a call and really give us an earful at 805-613-7866. That's 805-613-SUMO. We wouldn't blame you.
Yeah, I don't know what necessarily is up next for us, but I don't know. We're bored. We don't have a whole lot to do, so expect some more bonus episodes.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time,
Throw your salt high.
and keep moving forward.